Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. This story contains sensitive emotional themes, including infidelity, betrayal, and psychological tension, which may be disturbing to some viewers. All characters and events are presented in a fictionalized manner for dramatic purposes, even if inspired by true events. The aim of this story is to explore the emotional complexities of human relationships, not to promote or encourage negative behavior. Please watch with an open mind and remember, every story has two sides. It was strange how silence could speak louder than words. In our house, silence wasn't peace, it was distance. My husband wasn't cruel, but he wasn't present either. The man I had once fallen deeply in love with now seemed like a guest who overstayed his welcome in his own home. His presence was cold, like the winter mornings that never quite warm up, no matter how much sunlight floods the room. 4 months now, our conversations had shrunk into short, necessary sentences. Did you pay the bill? Where are the car keys? Good night. Nothing more. And that good night wasn't tender anymore, it was routine, like brushing your teeth before bed. Nothing behind it. Just emptiness. But it wasn't just between us anymore. My son, Ayan, had started changing too. He was just 8, too young to understand adult problems, yet somehow, children always sense things before they're told. He had become quieter, often lost in his own thoughts, watching everything around him with those big brown eyes. He didn't play with his toys like he used to. Instead, he would sit by the window, drawing strange shapes in the fogged-up glass with his finger. I didn't know what was going on inside his small, thoughtful head. Then one night, everything started to change. It was past midnight when I woke up. There was no sound, no movement, but I felt it. You know that feeling when someone's watching you, even though you can't explain why? My heart was racing before I even opened my eyes. And then I saw him. Ayan. Standing silently at the edge of my bed. His small hand gripping the corner of my blanket, his face almost expressionless, but his eyes holding something I couldn't describe, something between fear and sadness. What is it, baby? I whispered, careful not to wake his father sleeping on the other side of the bed. But Ayan said nothing. He just stood there. Watching me. Watching us. I reached out and softly pulled him close, tucking him into my arms beside me, his small body warm and trembling. He didn't say anything that night. He just lay there, clutching my arm tightly, eyes wide open in the dark. For the first time in a long time, I felt something different, not from my husband, but from my son. I didn't know why, but that night, I realized, something was broken in this family, and somehow, my son knew it too. And that was just the beginning. The days after that night felt heavier, like I was carrying invisible weight everywhere I went. My husband, as usual, didn't notice. He was too busy with his meetings, his phone calls, and his late nights at work. That's what he always said, work's piling up, you know how it is. I had stopped questioning his excuses long ago, partly because I didn't want the argument, and partly because I didn't want to hear the truth. But it was Ayan's behavior that truly disturbed me. He wasn't the same little boy anymore. It's strange how children can mirror the moods of the people around them without even understanding why. He would sit quietly at the dining table, picking at his food, glancing at his father with a mixture of curiosity and caution, as if studying a puzzle he couldn't solve. And every now and then, I'd catch him looking at me, his eyes silently asking questions his lips didn't dare form. Something was building up inside that little heart of his, and I was afraid to know what it was. Then came the second night. It was raining outside, gentle drops tapping against the windows, adding to the uneasy rhythm of my heartbeat. I was lying in bed, pretending to sleep, though my mind was racing with worries I couldn't shape into words. That's when I felt it again, that heavy, watchful presence near my bed. Opening my eyes slowly, I wasn't surprised to see him. Ayan stood there again, this time holding something small in his hand. Without a word, he stepped forward and carefully slid a folded piece of paper beneath my pillow. His little fingers trembled, but his expression was blank, like he was holding back tears or something worse. My throat dried up. I didn't move immediately, afraid of waking his father. Once Ayan crawled into the bed beside me and closed his eyes, I slowly reached under the pillow and unfolded the paper. It wasn't much, just a few scribbled words, written with shaky handwriting that only a child could produce. "Mom, I saw something." My heart dropped to my stomach. What did he see? My mind raced with possibilities, but none of them seemed right. Maybe it was something on the news. Maybe he'd seen something scary at school. But why sneak in at night? Why the secrecy? That innocent little sentence broke something open inside me. I wanted to shake him, to ask what he meant, to hold him so tightly that whatever fear he carried would disappear. But I didn't. Instead, I just lay there, frozen in the dark, clutching the paper in my hand and wondering what my son knew, and why he was too afraid to tell me. I could feel it coming like a storm on the horizon. This wasn't about school or nightmares. This was about us. This was about our family. And soon, I would know exactly what it was. I couldn't sleep that night. The words from that small, trembling note kept echoing in my mind. "Mom, I saw something." What had my son seen that made him sneak into my room in the dead of night? Why did his innocent little world suddenly look so heavy in his eyes? By morning, I felt like I hadn't rested at all. My husband was already up, getting dressed for work, barely glancing in my direction as he adjusted his tie in the mirror. It was the usual routine. I watched him like someone watches a stranger, as if trying to remember why they ever trusted them in the first place. After he left, I made breakfast for Ayan, pretending everything was normal. He didn't say much, just sat there with his spoon in his cereal, stirring it round and round. His silence was different now, though. It wasn't just shyness or moodiness. It was the kind of silence that holds a secret, one that burns in your chest because you don't know what to do with it. Finally, I sat down across from him. "Ayan," I said gently, "what did you see?" He didn't look up. His little hand squeezed the spoon tighter. "It's bad," he whispered. My heart clenched. "Tell me. You don't have to be afraid." And that's when he looked up at me, his big brown eyes full of confusion and pain no child should ever have to feel. "I saw Daddy, with another lady." "Not you." Everything stopped. It felt like someone had knocked the air out of my chest. Even though somewhere deep down I had suspected it, the late nights, the cold touches, the empty apologies, nothing prepared me for hearing it from my own son. I felt tears burning behind my eyes, but I forced myself to stay calm. "Where did you see him?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Ayan hesitated. "That day, when you sent me to get ice cream with Uncle Amir, I forgot my toy car at home. I came back to get it. Daddy was in the living room, with that lady. He was hugging her." The betrayal wasn't just in my husband's actions, it was in the fact that it happened here, in the home we built together, the place I thought was safe for our child. And my little boy, my sweet, innocent Ayan, had been the one to see it, to carry that image around like a heavy bag he didn't know how to put down. I reached across the table and took his hand, squeezing it softly. "It's not your fault," I told him firmly. "You did nothing wrong." But inside, I was breaking. The man I had loved, the father of my child, was hiding a life I didn't know about. And now, my son was caught in the middle of it. And I knew, I couldn't ignore it anymore. The days that followed felt like I was living someone else's life. Everything looked the same on the outside, breakfast on the table, laundry folded neatly, the same empty greetings between me and my husband, but inside, I was crumbling, piece by piece. I wasn't just heartbroken. I was angry. Furious. Not just for myself, but for my son. No child should have to carry the weight of their father's betrayal. But I waited. I didn't explode right away. I wanted the right moment. I needed to protect Ayan above everything else. It was a Friday evening when I decided enough was enough. We were all sitting at the dinner table, the three of us, pretending to be a family. The clatter of cutlery was the only sound filling the space between us. My husband, as usual, kept his eyes fixed on his plate, shoveling bites of food into his mouth without tasting them. He didn't notice the way I stared at him, didn't feel the tension building like an earthquake about to tear the floor apart beneath our feet. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw Ayan's hand slip under the table and grip the edge of my dress. His little signal. His way of telling me he knew something was about to happen. But I stayed quiet. Not here. Not in front of him. I swallowed the rising storm, and dinner continued like a bad dream on repeat. That night, I thought maybe, just maybe, I could sleep. I was wrong. Around midnight, I felt a soft movement beside me. I opened my eyes, expecting to see the usual shadow of my son's small figure. And there he was, standing by my bed again, but this time he wasn't holding a note or a toy. This time, he whispered something that shattered me more than anything else ever could. "Don't cry, Mom. I'll protect you." Tears spilled from my eyes before I could stop them. How could a child, barely old enough to tie his own shoelaces properly, feel like he had to protect me? What kind of mother was I, what kind of marriage was I trapped in, that my own son thought he was my shield? I pulled him into the bed beside me, wrapping him in my arms like I could somehow protect him from the ugly truth we were both trapped in. He rested his head on my chest, listening to the uneven beats of my heart as I tried to keep myself from falling apart completely. And in that moment, I knew what I had to do. I couldn't keep living in this lie, this hollow shell of a marriage where love had died long ago. I had been silent for too long, afraid of breaking what was already broken. Now, I was ready to break it all wide open. And it would start tomorrow. The next morning, I wasn't the same woman I had been the night before. Something inside me had shifted, like a fragile glass finally cracking under pressure. For years, I had kept myself busy with routines, cooking, cleaning, smiling at neighbors, pretending everything was fine. But now, the pretending was over. I began noticing things I had chosen to ignore before, the way my husband guarded his phone like a soldier, the late-night calls taken in hushed tones outside on the balcony, the faint smell of unfamiliar perfume lingering on his shirts. The signs were always there. I had just been too afraid to connect them. But now, I wasn't afraid anymore. I waited until Ayan was at school to begin my quiet investigation. I checked his phone when he was in the shower, locked. Of course. But I knew his patterns. I'd seen him type his password 100 times without realizing it. My hand shook as I entered the code, his birthday. Typical. Lazy. Guilty. And there it was. Messages. Dozens of them. Some hidden under a fake contact name, Work Project, it said. But Work Project didn't send heart emojis and didn't call at 2 a.m. on weekends. I scrolled through the chats, each word cutting deeper than the last. I wish I was waking up next to you today. Soon, I'll tell her everything. We'll be together, I promise. I wasn't even angry at that point. Just hollow. I stared at those words like someone staring at a burning building they used to call home. Part of me wanted to scream, to smash the phone into pieces. But the other part, the part that mattered most now, thought only of Ayan. He was the one who found the truth first. He was the one carrying this pain in his tiny heart, thinking he had to be the protector when it should have been the other way around. That evening, when my husband walked through the door with his usual fake smile, I didn't say a word. I simply watched him, studying every movement, every lie hidden in his eyes. And then I saw it, the guilt, the nervous shuffle, the forced conversation about how busy work has been lately. I knew the truth now, and he knew that I knew. Even if I hadn't spoken yet, the air between us was thick with silent war. But the worst blow was, the lies were unraveling now, thread by thread, and there was no going back. They say betrayal is easier to handle when it comes from a stranger. But when it comes from someone you trusted, someone you loved like family, it doesn't just break you. It destroys everything you thought was safe in the world. The woman I saw standing across from my husband wasn't a stranger. It was Sarah. My best friend. We had grown up together. Shared childhood secrets. Laughed till our stomachs hurt. She knew every fight I had with my husband, every tear I had cried on her shoulder. She was supposed to be my safe place in the storm. And now here she was, standing dangerously close to the man who vowed to love me forever, her hand lightly brushing his arm as they spoke like lovers planning a future. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I just stood there across the street, frozen like a statue, watching the two people who had broken my world, acting as if they were entitled to the life I had built. I felt small, invisible, like my whole identity was dissolving into the pavement beneath my feet. The betrayal wasn't just about love anymore, it was about trust. About years of loyalty being thrown away like it never mattered. I should have walked away, should have gone home and pretended I hadn't seen what I saw, but something in me snapped. I crossed the street, slow but steady, like a storm rolling in. Neither of them noticed me until I was almost standing right beside them. That's when Sarah's smile froze, mid-sentence, and my husband turned pale, like he had seen a ghost. "Having fun?" I asked, my voice low but steady. I just stood there, calm on the outside, completely shattered on the inside. The silence between us was heavier than any words I could have thrown at them. "I hope it was worth it," I finally whispered. "Because whatever this is, you've killed something you can never get back." With that, I turned and walked away. The tears didn't come until later. They didn't fall because of my husband. They didn't fall because of Sarah. They fell because of Ayan, my beautiful, innocent boy, caught in a web of lies spun by the very people who should have been protecting him. But as I wiped my tears that night, holding Ayan close to me, I knew one thing with complete clarity: this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of something else. Something stronger. It's strange how strength doesn't always come in loud moments. Sometimes, it arrives in complete silence, in the quiet decision to let go of something that's already broken. That's how I felt the next morning as I packed a small bag with only the essentials. Not out of impulse, but out of clarity. Ayan sat on the edge of the bed, watching me with wide, questioning eyes. "Are we going somewhere, Mama?" I crouched down to his level, brushing a hand gently through his hair. "We're just going somewhere peaceful for a little while, okay? Somewhere safe." I didn't want to tell him more yet. How could I explain the weight of betrayal to someone who still thought cartoons were scary? I just knew that my son didn't deserve to grow up in a home filled with silent wars and shattered promises. When my husband walked in that evening, his expression was different. Gone was the casual arrogance, the fake normalcy. He knew I had seen everything. Maybe Sarah had told him. Maybe he saw it in my eyes. This time, he didn't pretend. He didn't even reach for a weak apology. Instead, he said the most cowardly thing a man in his position could ever say: "It didn't mean anything." Didn't mean anything? I wanted to laugh. I wanted to scream. Instead, I stood there, steady, with the bag already by the door. "It meant something to me," I said softly. "It meant something to our son." That's when he flinched. Finally. Finally a crack in his polished, lying surface. "He doesn't understand, he understands more than you think," I cut him off. "Do you even realize?" He's been waking up at night, standing by my bed, too afraid to tell me what he saw. He's been carrying your betrayal inside that little heart like it's his burden to bear. The shame in his eyes was the only honest thing I'd seen in him in months. But I wasn't here for revenge. I wasn't here to make a scene. I was here to leave. For years, I thought silence would save this marriage, I continued, voice shaking but sure. I stayed quiet for you. I stayed quiet for Ayan. But silence only protects the guilty. I turned to Ayan and extended my hand. Come on, love. Without hesitation, he slid his small hand into mine, his trust whole, his loyalty unbroken despite everything around him shattering. As we stepped toward the door, I paused, glancing back one last time. I deserve better. He deserves better. With that, I walked away, not weak, not broken, but powerful in my choice. Sometimes leaving isn't about giving up. Sometimes, it's about finally understanding your worth. And as the door closed behind me, I realized something I hadn't in a very long time. This was the first breath of freedom I'd taken in years. The first night away from that house felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, terrifying, uncertain, but somehow, freeing. I had rented a small apartment not too far from Ayan's school. It wasn't much, 2 small rooms, thin curtains, the hum of city life drifting through cracked windows, but it was ours. It was the first place I had lived in years that didn't feel like a lie. Ayan adjusted quickly, as children often do when given even the smallest sense of peace. That night, he crawled into bed beside me like he always did, but this time, his little fingers curled around mine in a different way. Not scared. Not confused. Just, close. Safe. Is Daddy coming here? He whispered, his voice small against the dark. I looked down at him and gently kissed his forehead. No, baby. Not anymore. It's just you and me now. His little shoulders relaxed for the first time in weeks. In the mornings, I made tea and watched the sun rise through the cheap, thin curtains, feeling something I hadn't felt in years, control. Every choice I made was mine now. I wasn't living for a man who lied to me. I wasn't shrinking myself for the comfort of others. I was building something new, piece by piece, for myself, and for Ayan. The phone call started soon after. First, hesitant. Then desperate. My husband tried to apologize. Sent long texts about making things right and doing it for the family. But I didn't respond. I didn't owe him anything, not after the betrayal, not after dragging our son into his mistakes. And then there was Sarah. She tried, too. Sent me a message, something pathetic about "it just happened, please forgive me." Forgive her? It was almost funny. She had taken the one friendship I thought was real and twisted it into another lie. And I realized something in that moment: forgiveness isn't something you give because someone asks for it. It's something you give when you're ready, and only if it brings you peace. But I didn't forgive them for their sake. I forgave them for mine. Because I didn't want to live with their betrayal on my shoulders anymore. I wasn't going to let them have that power over me. They could carry their own guilt, their own shame. I was done carrying things that didn't belong to me. Months passed, and slowly, life began to reshape itself. I started working again, part-time at first, writing small articles, doing freelance projects from home. Ayan laughed more. He played again. And every time I saw his smile, it was like the cracks in my heart slowly stitched themselves closed. We weren't just surviving anymore. We were living. Sometimes, life doesn't give you the ending you dreamed of, but it gives you the strength to write a new one. And that's exactly what I was doing now. This wasn't the story I had chosen, but it was the story I reclaimed. For me. For Ayan. For us.